Hello, it's Lynn Watts here, and today in this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can help students work smarter, not harder. So we're really going to be talking about some study skills, but study skills that you can teach that will apply to every subject and every situation. All right, so let's get started. The first one is to always preview material, and that simply means to look ahead at what you're about to learn. Now, sometimes I think as a student, I used to kind of naturally do this, but I sort of felt like I was not supposed to, kind of like don't look ahead and spoil the surprise or try and get into it before you're ready. But actually, previewing is a very, very useful thing to do. So it doesn't really matter whether you're about to read a story, whether you're about to learn science, math, whatever it is you're about to learn. If you kind of preview, if you look through the material, let's say the chapter, the story, or the few pages that you're about to dive into ahead of time, you learn a whole lot of things. You get an idea. How long is it? How involved is it? What do I already know? And here's a really key thing, I think, is to begin formulating some questions in terms of what you would like to learn given this material, or maybe it's what you need to learn. Okay. So for some kind of material that one thing builds on another, let's say math, you might sort of thumb through a few pages and think, wow, this is going to use such and such skill that I didn't spend quite enough time learning before. All right. So it can be helpful in that sense. It can help a student know what maybe they need to go back and refresh themselves about before they dive into the material. It also can help students come up with questions of things they would like to learn. In a previous video, I talked about motivation, and coming up with questions can be very motivating. Let's say you're looking through a story that you're about to read. So the student might think, I wonder what's happening here. Maybe they just look at the pictures. Maybe they read some headings. Why does this happen? What could be happening? They might make a few guesses, but that can create motivation going forward for learning the outcome. All right, so the next thing would be looking for and understanding patterns. And everything we do has patterns, and understanding and recognizing patterns always makes it easier to learn. You kind of know what to expect for one thing. It helps you know what comes next. So let's take a story, for instance, that a student's about to read. There are always certain series of things that you can ascertain or learn from the story. There's always going to be main characters. There's always going to be a problem. There's always going to be a climax. There's always going to be a solution to the problem. Although sometimes the solution is that it's not solved, but most of the time there is some kind of reconciliation. There's some way of determining what to do about the problem. So there's a pattern to every story that you can look for. And that is also true in all other subjects as well. So help students recognize and learn the patterns that they see. Third thing to do is to help students set goals. And this is somewhat related to the first thing of coming up with a few questions that you might have. But I think it's always important for a student to recognize what is it that they hope to learn. Not, it could be what the teacher wants you to learn or what you need to learn for the test. And teachers certainly generally teach to that and tell you what you need to learn. But it may be that a student wants to set some additional goals, like their goal might be to learn to learn a particular historical fact if they're studying history, or they might want to learn something about a particular country. Maybe they have never been to that country, but they'd like to go, and so maybe they have some questions that might be answered, even though that's not really the focus of what you're learning in that geography class. So have students set some goals. Of course, goals could be related to their academics. They want to score so high on a test, or they want to, learn so many math facts, that sort of thing. So goals are important, and goals are part of motivation, and it's what keeps us going. Another technique is to connect new learning with old learning. So this has to do with always looking for what I already know and how that's going to help me learn what I am going to be learning about in this section. So this is obvious for math, I think, where you have to learn certain math facts, and then you have to be able to apply those in future situations. So it's obvious what you need to know there, but it's also true in any subject that there is previous knowledge of that subject, whether that's learning a certain number of vocabulary words and being able to read something that's more involved, or learning vocabulary for that particular topic, or in history, understanding the historical things that happened prior to this era or this situation. So understanding what is going to be new and how that's connected to the old is always an important part of studying. Another skill would be developing the skill of summarizing. And so this is really helpful thing to actually do at various points in learning. So let's say you have a whole chapter to learn, maybe the first section. You want to teach a student to stop and kind of summarize what they learned or what they read about so far. And then moving forward in the next section, summarize, and then at the end, summarize the whole chapter. This might be just verbally doing it, or it might be thinking through it, or it might be actually writing it down. I know back when I used to study, let's say in college, I would make bullets for each chapter. These are facts that I need to know. And then you go back and you kind of summarize each one of those and look at them separately. So skill of summarizing is important. And the final one is using reciprocal teaching and learning. And that simply means that we always learn best when we teach somebody else. So if you can provide opportunities, a lot of times you can do this in partnering situations where you have a student partner up with another student, and one student summarizes the first section, the second student summarizes the second, and then they kind of collaborate on was anything left out, that sort of thing. So you're basically teaching somebody else what you are learning yourself. So reciprocal teaching and learning is always a really great way to learn material, and it also boosts confidence and improves retention. So those are several study skills that you can easily teach in a classroom. You can break them up, practice one each time, put them all together. You could teach them in a study skills group. Lots of different ways that you can share how to learn to study successfully to young students. I think it's a very important topic. A lot of times we just assume that students know how they should study, but having a particular lesson in it can be very useful. As always, thanks so much for all the things that you do to make a difference in the lives of young students. And thanks so much for listening.